Welcome to ITE National Capital Sections webinar for City of Toronto's Quick Build Cycling Program. Before we get started, I wanna introduce this year's executives. So my name is Nino Akwete. I'm the president for 2024. We have Vice President Jordan Papazoglu, who just put on his camera. Thanks, Jordan. We have Patrick McMahon, Treasurer, Nikki Tiolas, Secretary, Rebecca Conrad, who's our Tech Rep, Daisy Mota, Comms Coordinator, Sean Smith, Past President, and Gordon Scobie. And Gordon is our National Director. So we'll be organizing events throughout the year. So if you ever have any ideas, you can reach out to any of us. So moving on, we have. I just wanted to say we able to bring some of these events to you. Can see our sponsors. So thank you to our sponsors, and we are looking forward to our 2024 sponsors. So maybe we'll just jump right in. We have our presenters for today, Simran Patel, who's a transportation technologist with the Cycling and Pedestrian Projects Unit in City of Toronto. And we have Zach Wang, transportation engineer with planning, delivery, and management in the Civil Construction Unit, City of Toronto. So I will stop sharing my screen now. So Simran, if you want to take over, that would be great.
All right.
All right. I just wanted to mention that as we go on, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat, and I'll be monitoring the chat. But we'll save question and answers to the end of the presentation.
All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. So hello, everyone. I'm Simran, and I have here my colleague, Zach. And today we're going to be talking about the Quick Build Design Program at the City of Toronto, as well as the small-scale civil construction roster. So I know Nino just did an introduction, but my name is Simran, and I'm an engineer technologist at the City of Toronto for the Cycling and Pedestrian Projects team. And my primary role is doing the design of cycling and pedestrian projects in the city. Zach?
Hey everyone, my name is Zach, and I'm a transportation engineer in the planning, design, and management sections civil construction unit. And yeah, looking forward to speaking with everyone today.
All right, so today we'll be going into a little bit about our quick build design program and the 3 contracts that we have that we use to design and implement the cycling projects in the city in-house, as well as the small scale civil construction roster, which Zach will be going on in detail in a little bit later. So at the city on our team, we have 2 methods of implementing cycling projects that are other than the typical tendering out the projects and working with consultants who implement the cycling infrastructure. So the first one is bundling with state of good repair projects. So this is the city's road maintenance project in which roads, sidewalks, curbs, and bridges are all repaired as necessary. So we can bundle our projects with their reconstruction or resurfacing projects. And this way, it allows us to incorporate more permanent infrastructure in our the cycling projects. And it also helps to improve the safety of both pedestrians and cyclists. So for example, here you can see we could propose sidewalk widening and enhancements. So we can upgrade all our sidewalks to be up to standard because some of them are a lot older. We can also add green infrastructure such as green gutters and green gardens between our cycle tracks and the vehicular lane. So you can see in the picture, we've added a little green area in the design. We can also do raised cycle tracks or propose new signalized crossings. We can propose raised local street crossings and enhanced public transit stops. So these are more permanent built transit bike stops. And we can also do protected cycling intersections. So these things are only possible through this bundling process because all of these elements are very civil heavy. And the second method is the Quick Build Design Program, and this is how we deliver most of our projects, and these are all completed in-house. And these projects can include changing the existing roadway and modifying the lane configuration so we can do pavement marking changes. And these can be something that ranges from adding a cycle track or cycle lanes in both directions to just adding sharrows on the road. We can also use precast concrete materials such as the precast curbs, our low walls, and flexible posts. So we can add these on the road as well as a separation between the cycle track and the vehicular lanes. We can also modify some signal timings. For example, if we're modifying the pavement markings to push the zebra crossing back a little bit, we can work with signals team to modify the signal timings. And then there's like minor civil work, such as doing a new ramp or adding tactile plates, etc. So these things are possible because we have 3 contracts on our cycling team. So that would include the 400 PM pavement markings contract, the 100 FB bollards and divider contract, and the 500 ZICLA contract, which is for modular bus platforms. So these are the 3 contracts that we have on our team that we use to implement the Quick Build Design Program cycling projects. It's important to note that these 3 contracts are blanket contracts, which means the items are predefined. However, the quantities are not finalized as long as we don't go over the value of the contract. So another benefit of these being blanket contracts is that there's no geographic restriction. So we can use this contract anywhere in the city, unlike projects such as Bloor or Young or Danforth, where we had one contract where one contractor does the pavement markings, bollards, or ZICLA platforms on just one street. So we can't use that contract anywhere else. These are these have no restriction. Another benefit is that based on the kind of work we do, it's not real, the timelines are kind of unknown. So we don't really know when the project is going to be implemented. So with these blanket contracts, when the project and the design are finalized and approved, the contract is already in place. So first, we're going to be talking about pavement marking. So this contract includes all different types of pavement markings that we would use on our cycling projects. So first we have all the lines, we have the 10, 20, 30, all the way. We even included the 10 centimeter green and blue special lines, which are used on a few of our trails in the city. And this also includes all the broken versions of each of these lines that you can use for the separation of travel lanes, or we use them for driveways on cycle tracks. These are all quantified by length. Next, we have our symbols. So we have our 20 and 40 centimeter elephant feet. We have the bike symbol, the arrows, the diamond, traffic symbols, traffic arrows as well. And then you can see we have the chevrons. And then in the bottom left picture, you can see we have a bicycle detection symbol, shark's teeth. We would include catch basin indicator arrows, speed hump triangles, any symbol that you can think that we would need to implement a cycling project is included in this contract. It's important to note that we also have to include the removal of each of these items. So we have a section for the installation of these symbols as well as the removal, because if there's an instance when we want to modify an older design that's been implemented, or we want to change something because it's not working the way we thought it would, we might have to remove a few symbols or lines. So those items do need to be included in the contract. So next we have the thermoplastic. So here we have the green bike, diamond, cycle, and arrow symbols, and as well as the bus stop and bike bus only words. And these are all preformed, which means it comes with the symbol and the green around the symbol. So they're quantified by each, and then any space that you need around the symbol on your design, it's quantified by meters squared. So in the top left, and the top row, you can see pictures of how these are installed. So it comes in a bunch of pieces, and then you have to put the puzzle together, and then they're blowtorched. So that's why they're quantified like that. This is different than MMA, which is the solid red area you see, which is only quantified by meters squared, because it's a paint that's painted onto the road, and then the symbols are applied on top of it. And then we also have the decorative interconnected thermoplastic, which is the bottom right corner. So we use these on our curb extensions or buffers or parking ends, depending on the location and where the project is located. One thing to note as these items, in this section are not included in our operations and maintenance contract. So if and when there is any maintenance of these items, it does have to come through our contract. So next, we'll be talking about the 100 FB bollards and divider contracts. So unlike the pavement marking and the ZCLA contract, which are specific to the cycling and pedestrian projects team, this contract is also used by Vision Zero and operations and maintenance to do the maintenance or add Vision Zero items as well. So the first item in the contract is our bollards. There's many different types. The first one is the round. What it comes in white and yellow. Then we have the flat, which comes in white, yellow, and well as an object marker one. That's the last one on the bottom picture. Then there's also a bollard plus the object marker, which is the first picture on the top, and we put these in front of our low walls. And then there's a flexible in-road signage, which is used by Vision Zero. So typically round bollards are only used by Vision Zero or by us, but only on curved sections. So usually for curb extensions. Flat bollards are used along straighter sections. And there's a lot of history as to why we prefer the flat over the round, which I'll be going a bit into detail in the next slide. But just to show you the history of the design of the bollards, you can see the first two pictures on the bottom are both of our round bollards. The yellow one is the older design. It has a flat cap on the top. And what used to happen is when a vehicle hits it, the cap comes off, and then rain and snow can fill inside the tube. And then if it freezes, it kind of blasts the base off. So then the bollard would have to be replaced much more frequently. So then the white is our newer design where we're kind of pinching the top. So now we don't have to worry about the rain and water issues of the bollard. But there are a lot more disadvantages with the round bollards. Um, they get damaged a lot more quicklier than the flat ones. It only takes a few hits and then it has to be replaced. And the anchors that hold the bollards can't be reused. So when we replace if the bollard is broken, you have to replace the whole thing. And eventually the holes that you had in the ground don't have enough grit and they don't hold the new anchors. So you have to put new holes in the pavement, which means the existing holes are exposing the underground pavement structure to the weather conditions. They also tend to get crushed a lot faster and they get damaged. And the reflectivity of the bollard is around the tube. So when it gets hit and the vehicles run over them, they're dragged on the ground and the reflectivity strips come off much quicker and they just get crushed. So the bollards have to be replaced much more frequently than the flat bollards. So the flat bollards actually have more of a permanent anchor to the pavement. It's made out of rubber. So when the bollard is hit, all the bending happens above the ground and not underground. So if the bollard gets broken and needs to be replaced, we only have to replace the bollard, not the fixture that holds it into the pavement. So that's a little bit more like it's helpful for maintenance. It also takes a lot more hits before it gets damaged and it doesn't get crushed very easily. And the final benefit of the flat bollards is that they're actually concave. So the reflectivity strip sits on the concave surface of the bollard. So when it does get hit, the strips don't actually get damaged and it's actually beneficial for visibility as well. So the next item on our contract is the precast curbs. So these are custom. They are 2 meters long and 20 centimeters wide, which means they're slightly narrower than a typical curb. So this allows us to place the curbs on narrower buffers, so we'd need less space on the road. And since they're a little bit shorter, we can fit more curbs on shorter buffers as well. We've also designed them to have the rebar on the bottom of the curbs rather than in the middle or closer to the top. This way we have space to be able to anchor our bollards right on top of the curbs instead of having to put them adjacent to the curbs. Next, we have the low walls. These are also custom and they have hooks on the side of them to be able to chain and link all of the pieces together in a row, and you can curve them as well. And another feature of these is that they have a drainage channel on the bottom of the low walls. So for our precast curbs, we have to leave gaps in between our curbs to be able to allow water to get to the catch basins. But for the low walls, We don't have to provide gaps because there's a big channel underneath to let the water go through. And these walls are not pinned to the road. However, in the new version and the new design that we're thinking of doing this year, we're thinking of pinning the first piece, which is called the transition piece. So in the bottom picture, you can see it's the dark blue piece in the front. We're thinking of pinning that piece to the road because it's usually hit the most, and then it shifts into the cycle track or the vehicular lane. So we want to pin that piece so to avoid that movement. It's also important to note that the city does have a letter from a consultant engineer which allows us to use these walls, and it is necessary to be able to use it in your municipality. So other items in the contract include tactile warning mats and planters. We use these planters as separation on the cycle track, so you can see in the picture the rectangular planter boxes are separating the cycle track from the cafe TO. And then we also have some Vision Zero items such as rubber speed humps and lane separators. Similar to the line marking contract, you do have to include the maintenance of items in this contract as well. So items would include like just the removal of something because we don't want it there. Then you also have to include removal and reinstall. So if there's a damaged item on the road and you want to go pick up the damaged one and place a new one, that's an item in the contract. Then we also have removal, storage, and reinstall, which is when you want to take something away, put it away for a bit, and then install it back again later. So for example, for cafe TO projects, or if there's a construction project, we're going to remove the item off of the road, store it somewhere, and then bring it back. So those are separate items that you have to include in your contract. And then finally, we have the ZICLA contract. So this is for modular platforms that we use on our cycle projects. So this contract has a few different, the items are all separated. So we have platforms, ramps, and railings all as separate items. And this is because ZICLA platforms kind of work like Lego, and you can fit pieces together to make the platform wider or narrower, shorter. You could do a lot of different configurations. And so we've kept all the different pieces as separate items in the contract. So the first thing we have here is all the different types of platform types that we have. So we have the 2 to 6 meter platform, the 6 to 12 meter platform, 12 to 16, and then an island configuration platform. And we've kept these as ranges of sizes rather than rigid, like a 16-meter platform, because it provides more flexibility in the design and we can accommodate for more locations. So for example, this year we know we're going to have projects where we want to install ZICLA, but the design is still ongoing and we don't know what the situation is going to be or what platform is going to fit in that location. So the range of platforms provides more opportunity to be able to use a platform in various locations depending on what will fit at that particular situation. And since this is a blanket contract, the number of how many of each of these platforms we have is not fixed, so it allows us even more flexibility. So this is the first type of platform that we have. It's the 2 to 6 meter platform, and these are very short, so they're usually just used for accessible loading. They're not used for transit. They're too short to be a transit stop. And you can see all the components of the platform here. There's a ramp at the beginning and the end of the platform. Then there's the platform itself with the yellow around it that replicates like a tactile warning mats. Then there's a connection piece that connects the platform to the sidewalk. So all these pieces are on all of the platforms. Next, we have the 6 to 12 and 12 to 16 meter platforms. So these platforms are used for transit stops. And how the process works is we would send ZICLA a little picture of our location and say this is the approximate dimensions of the platform that we need to be installed in this location. And they'll take that information back and develop a design of the final measurements of the platform. They'll give you a little picture of what it looks like, and they'll give you a list of all the different pieces that you need. So how many platform pieces, connector pieces, how many pieces to build the ramp. They'll provide you an entire design package, and then we would send that to our contractor who will then source and implement and install all those pieces for us. And then the last one that we have is called the island platform. So here you can see there's a smaller platform that leads pedestrians over the cycle track and onto the island section of the platform. And that's where pedestrians would get on and off from the bus. And we have the ramp over the smaller one to get cyclists over to the other side. This is very beneficial when there's parking adjacent to the cycling track and buses are allowed to stop in the through lane. On the left picture, you can also see we've installed a railing, which is a separate item in the contract. And the railing just provides additional safety and accessibility for the users. Other items in the contract include asphalt ramps, which we don't really use that frequently, modular ramps. So the newer ramps that are in the Zikla contract are made out of plastic, so you can see them installing them in the picture on the left. Older ones you can see on the picture on the right are made out of metal, but we found that those were difficult to work with winter maintenance. So we're actually replacing all of our metal ramps with the plastic ramps. So that's why it was helpful that the ramps were a separate item in the contract. Then we could just replace the ramps on older Zikla platforms. And then there's the railing, as well as bollards and signage. So this is only bollards and signage associated with the platform. So on the picture on the right, you can see that we have a bollard at the beginning and the end of the platform between the ramp and the sidewalk. So that gap is necessary for drainage. So we put a bollard there to try to warn the cyclists to be a little bit to the left to get onto the ramp. And then there would be a signage at the beginning of the platform that says cyclist yield to pedestrian. So both of these items are included in this contract so that one contractor can install all the components related to the Zikla platform so that when it's completed, it's ready to use. All right, and next I'll give it to Zach to talk about the small scale civil construction roster.
Yeah. Hey everyone. Yeah, thanks, Simran. As she mentioned, I'll be diving into a little bit about the small scale civil construction roster program that we have currently here at the city. So we're actually a independent team within the planning, design, and management section. We have 3 full-time staff, a senior PM, project lead, and also myself, transportation engineer, who are dedicated full-time on kind of keeping this roster program running. So not only do we work extensively with the cycling pedestrian projects group, which is Simran's team, but also with other partner groups within our section, for example, Vision Zero and also neighborhood projects. So kind of a little background behind how this roster came to be. It was originally inspired by the electrical maintenance contractors roster program. And in 2022, a master agreement was tendered out to bring on board 3 contractors to kind of create this initial roster. And this roster has focused more or less on the delivery of smaller scale, shorter duration, but impactful projects. Each individual assignment that we issue out to these roster contractors are limited to $500,000 in cost. This is done so that the $500,000 figure came about because it's the kind of like the higher range before we have to seek higher approval for tendering, which could cause a lot of projects to be delayed or take longer to tender out. These assignments are created and also released as independent RFQs for these 3 roster contractors to bid on. Sometimes we like to take smaller scale projects and bundle them together to issue one RFQ, which could include several locations with a variety of work in one RFQ assignment. This is done so that we can kind of efficiently use the 500K cap to the best of our capabilities. This roster, as I mentioned before, allows us to quickly and efficiently tender and deliver projects. And some of the things that we have tackled and delivered through this roster program could include things like sidewalk and trail segment connections, curb radii changes and intersection improvements, public realm improvements, for example, planters and also other improvements within the neighborhood, road geometry and pedestrian safety improvements, things like poured in place concrete curb, median islands, transit platforms, like more permanent ones compared to the ones that Simran talked about earlier with Zikla, and also green infrastructure improvements. Another thing that was kind of new to us in the year 2023 was the delivery of underground traffic signal infrastructure and also the supporting and associated civil work in preparation for a future traffic signal installation. Next slide, please. Sorry, next slide. Yeah, thanks. Here's a bit of overview about how we make it happen. Like obviously I'm not going to dive into the nitty gritties about the tendering process, but you can see here from this kind of overview that we as a team are involved in everything from the pre-tendering to the design review phase and also to the contract execution and ultimately the contract administration, inspection, and the actual construction delivery of the work. So in the beginning, my team, including myself, would be involved in providing support in creating the design drawings and taking it from like a design concept all the way to something that's ready to be issued for tendering. After that, once it's the full RFQ package is prepared, we tender it out and get involved in all the paperwork that are associated with tendering the assignment out to the contractor. After it's finally awarded, and we work closely with our contracts team to make that happen, we move on to the contract delivery and contract administration stages. So our team would act then as the contract administrators and also the construction inspectors to make sure that these projects are delivered as per the city's requirements and specifications. So in the next few slides, I'll go over some of the projects and examples of things that we were able to complete in 2022 and 2023 to kind of give you guys an example and a sense of what kind of things we can do through this roster program. Next slide, please. Thanks. So this project here involved the upgrading of a quick build radius improvement project along the bike lane on Danforth to more permanent curb extensions. So originally, this particular intersection had things like the bullards and also the pavement markings that you saw to kind of delineate a curb extension, but the idea was to take that and move it into something permanent. So you can see from this picture here that these bulb outs are not only just an extension of the concrete sidewalk, they're also green infrastructure planters and also provide seating for the community. In the future, that particular property you see in the picture is going to turn into a Ethiopian restaurant, I believe. So this kind of would double not only as an added safety feature, but something for the community to enjoy and sit and enjoy their lunch or whatnot in the summertime. And then additionally, in this photo, you can see that a raised crosswalk was also constructed across, sorry, same slide. Yeah, thanks. A raised crosswalk was also constructed along Calvin as a new safety feature. This project, interestingly enough, was actually issued as a lump sum per location bid. So the contractors, when they do their bid, would give us one cost to construct all the elements associated with this particular location. But something that we decided to change in 2023 was that all subsequent projects that we tendered were issued as itemized contracts so that they would bid on the specified items per location as opposed to just giving us one lump sum. And we found that that was a way of getting us better cost efficiency. And if we had to do things like change orders or things like item quantity overruns, it was easier and a lot more efficient to do it through an itemized contract. Yeah. Now, next slide, please. Thank you. So here's another project that was constructed in the year 2023. It was essentially intended to formalize the connection for pedestrians and cyclists near the trail system close to Riverdale Park. If any of you guys are familiar with the downtown Toronto area, you know that it's very busy, especially in the summertime for cyclists and also pedestrians. So you can see here a before and after shot comparing the type of changes that we did. For example, the sidewalk and also the entrance to the St. Matthew's Clubhouse was completely refurnished and redone. The site furnishings, things like benches, signs, water fountains, etc., were relocated to give a more organized space and to give a more make everything not only prettier but also like a more formalized entry to the St. Matthew's Clubhouse. This clubhouse is it's a pretty historic building, and now it doubles as a community hub for arts programs and also other programs in the community. Something else we did was we partnered with Toronto's Bike Share to add in a concrete pad to support their relocation of a bike share station. This bike share station gets a lot of usage in every season throughout the year, so it was good to have it relocated to a location that was able to provide better access and connections to the rest of the cycling network. Something that we were able to do for this project was tender it and also get everything completed and constructed. The construction only took about 2 or 3 weeks, which was quite good, and was able to have everything opened for the Canada Light Day long weekend. And the park, also the residents were very appreciative of that because they were able to have activities in this new construction area. Next slide, please. Yeah, the next project that I wanted to share with was the Parliament Square cycling trail. So this cycling trail was actually identified for a very long time as kind of a quote unquote missing link in the Esplanade Mill cycling connection. So something that cyclists previously had to do was share the park trail with pedestrians. So on the picture on the left there, that there's only one trail that cyclists and also pedestrians would have to use to go from Berkeley Street to Parliament and vice versa. So in working with Metrolinx, we were actually able to construct a new cycling trail between the streets of Berkeley and Parliament. You can see the picture on the right, the black fence there is actually part of Metrolinx's future Ontario Line project. So this trail, not only presently, but also in the future, would continue to serve the community. And once the Ontario Line station and all the other developments open up, it will continue to exist and kind of be part of one uniform development. The community here was also, they really appreciated our work, and we actually had like a little ribbon cutting ceremony once the trail was officially opened. And I think that this trail gets a ton of usage in all times throughout the year, and it just makes everything a lot safer and more efficient for cyclists and also pedestrians. The next project next slide, please. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the next project that I wanted to talk about was actually something that we delivered with our partners in the Vision Zero projects team, but it had a lot of cycling elements in there as well. So one of the things that we did on Dundas Street in the eastbound direction was the construction of around 130 meters of cast in place concrete barriers along the eastbound bike lane. These barriers they're a bit more robust compared to the temporary curbs, and kind of gives a sense of permanence to the bike lane there. Another thing you'll notice in the picture that we did was a green infrastructure planter curb island, similar to the one you saw previously at Danforth and Calvin. And this one was actually kind of inspired by the earlier roster project. So it's one of those things where you are able to apply lessons that you learned from a project you constructed previously and apply it to a future project. In addition to that, the bike lane in the section was found to be in poor condition, and we decided after the project was tendered actually to repave a significant chunk of the bike lane in the section. And one of the things that the itemized contract allowed us to do was to do it through a change order and keep the originally tendered prices and just extended those quantities, which introduced quite a bit of cost efficiencies from our perspective. Next slide. Yeah. Additionally, at this particular intersection, you can see that we also did a series of curb radius improvements, quote unquote bulb outs were constructed in this intersection along with new pavement markings. On the picture on the right, you can see the extension of our new permanent concrete barriers and new refreshed pavement markings to go with that. So yeah, that's it for this one. Next slide, please. Yeah, the next project that I wanted to talk about is a project that the team undertook along a T intersection on Davenport and Bartlett. So the ultimate layout of this T intersection, once all the improvements are constructed, is that it's going to have new signalized crosswalks and also a TTC stop on either side of the intersection for the 127 bus, which runs along Davenport. So the roster team, in working with other teams in the city, constructed the accessible TTC platforms, which you can see on the picture on the right. So that one here, kind of different from the Zikla in that these are actually concrete and also asphalt and are intended as permanent installations to accommodate not only the people who ride the bus, but also people who cycle through Davenport. In addition to that, we were able to construct the underground conduits and other civil infrastructure to support the subsequent signal installation. In addition to that, signage and also pavement marking installations were also done by the same contractor. So not only are we able to complete projects which are kind of independent for the team, but we're also able to support and also work with other teams to contribute to projects that are a bit more complex in scale as well. Yeah, and I think that's it from my end. Next slide. Thank you everybody for listening to our presentation.
All right, thank you so much, Simran and Zach, and that was a great presentation with photos to show what has been done so far. I think I'll go to the chat to see. I see one question. Then I'll go to Dave, who has his hand up. So there's a question from Colin that asks, what challenges do you have to coordinate multiple contractors? For example, precast curb installation with bollard installation on the curbs with pavement markings. So I don't know who will take that. Will that be Zach or Simran?
Simran, did you ever run into a situation like that?
Not too sure. I have not personally run into a situation like that. I'm not sure. Yeah, I haven't personally run into.
Okay. Sorry, I see Colin. Colin, are you on the line?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll withdraw the question. At the beginning, it wasn't clear to me. It seemed like the contracts were for supply and installation, but just as I entered the question, it became clear that they were for supply only, and the installation was handled later. So I withdraw the question. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. We have another question from Sean. How long does the thermoplastic and MMA typically last?
I think it depends on the pavement that you're installing the green on. If the pavement is already in poor condition, it won't be installed as correctly as it should be. So it will get damaged a lot faster. But if you're installing it on a new asphalt, it can last pretty long.
Okay. And we have Kanchan's hands up. So if you want to unmute and then add anything to it, Kanchan.
Hi there. Sorry, I was Simran and Zach were generous to help do this presentation because I wasn't able to. So I greatly appreciate that. So I can answer more of the technical detailed questions as well. I can go back to Colin's question about the challenges for multiple contractors. So currently we have 3 different contracts, but luckily they're all the same contractor at the current moment. But we are like myself and the team that I manage are our own general contractor, and we do the coordination on our side, where we make sure that we sequence them. Like the pavement marking happens first, the signage happens in coordination with the pavement marking, and then the separators go afterwards, and then the Ziklas come last. So we do all that coordination ourselves.
Right. Okay. We have another question from Mike. So it says, how robust are the plastic platforms? Do they ever get damaged by buses or other vehicles?
So we've had them in use since about 2019 on King Street. We have a bunch of spares. We've got skids of spares that are stored at one of our yards. They've been pretty good. The biggest points of contact have been on the leading corner and the ramps. So the ramps mostly from snowplows, but we have spare parts that we go and replace those damaged sections with. And we do that as a combination of sometimes the contractor, but mostly it'll be our in-house staff that does those replacements using our spares.
Okay. And next question from Andrew. How do you approach the design of these quick build and small scale projects? In-house or consultants? Is topographic survey typically used?
I think
Zach,
I can
you want to take that one?
Yeah. I can take a portion of this question about like our stuff. We generally source our projects from a variety of sources. Some of them are built in-house, or not built, like rather designed in-house by engineers and also ETTs within our own resources. Some of them were sourced through consultants. So they come from a variety of different sources. Some projects, for example, Parliament Square in Davenport, were designed by a engineering consultant. Other ones, some of the Vision Zero ones, actually, they have the capacity in-house of designing and preparing all the drawings, all the specifications. And so it all really depends on what team we work with and the type of capabilities they have, whether in-house or externally, to deliver these. With regards to the survey, I think that a lot of these designs, especially the ones from Vision Zero and our consultants, they do have like a pretty extensive database of background data, and they have ways of getting surveys, whether through like a surveying consultant or an external service, or doing it in-house. But other projects, for example, like if it's something like a neighborhood public realm improvement, for example, if you're putting in a planter, you might not actually need that data. Sometimes it'll be just good to have like very extensive site visits to actually note down things you need. So it, I hope that answers your question, because it comes from like each project has its own little history behind it. But the team, like we have between the three of us, we're not currently involved in doing any design for projects that we do through the roster.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from Chris. Do you have statistics on vehicle collisions with the short barriers? And have there been any challenges with injuries to vehicle occupants?
So the only reports that we have right now were anything where there would have been a police report filed, so a collision with a police report. We don't have any statistics on that information yet, and we haven't really drilled down to see if there are any. The largest collisions that we've found, or that we know about, are ones where vehicles mount them at slow speed. We do have guidelines on where we will use these barriers, what types of roads, classification, speed limits, lanes. So there's only specific circumstances where we'll even use them. Usually they're low speed roads, 50 kilometers an hour, typically 40, no more than one lane in each direction typically. We do have one report that I've seen of a flipped vehicle on it, where the vehicle hit at very high speed and ended up on its roof way down the road. But other than that, they've all been low speed, where the vehicle just mounts and gets stuck on top and they can't leave.
Okay. Next question is from Stacy. When the pavement marking updates through the Quick Build in-house projects impact vehicle or bike detectors, are those dealt with in a separate contract?
So it depends what the bike detection type is. If it's, or what we're doing as part of the greater project. So if they were doing a signal modification at the intersection as well, we're removing stop bars, we're changing lane widths and lane configurations, all of the modifications to the detection type or detection zones is taken care of as part of a separate signals contract. So there's another contract that we didn't talk about in this presentation, which is just signals, and that is managed by a different unit in a different section of transportation.
Right. Okay. That's all I see in the chats. Does anybody have a question in the audience? You can raise your hand and unmute yourself to ask that. I do see Daisy. Go ahead.
Hey, I was typing this down, but it's easier to ask.
Yeah.
So my question is about, like, because I noticed the new ramps that are being replaced for the Zikla platforms, they have like a little bit wide grating. I was wondering if there's any feedback from cyclists about these new ramps.
So this year hasn't been a very severe winter. We've really only had two, maybe three snow incidents in Toronto so far. But as far as compared to the metal ones and our own staff using them, they have been much more positively received in every aspect. Both the rusting, the nails, the traction as well on them. They've got a lot of, I guess, a surface abrasion on them, so that they're more durable, and they have more grip as well. So nothing yet that I've heard of. Nothing negative yet.
Great, thanks.
All right. Thank you. I don't see any hands or any more questions, so I just want to say thank you so much for this presentation. Really insightful, and I just want to mention to the rest of the team that we were also looking at doing a transportation book club for the members in the national capital section, and we did have a survey in there, but I could put the survey in the chat if you want to take a quick survey for us to gauge member interest in having a transportation book club here in Ottawa. But once again, I want to say thank you to Simran and Zach, as well as Kachan, for this presentation. And we look forward to implementing this locally. So thank you, and have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.